Hello, everyone. Good after. It's actually evening. It's almost 7 o'clock. It's a little after 7 o'clock here in the city. So anyway, good evening from New York City. I hope you're well. RJ's sniffing around in the background, as you can see. So this is a bit of an impromptu video, but so has a lot of my content recently. So I hope everybody's well. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed recently. The Akila obviously video where I talked about how her ranting and raving and calling Sargon a racist and a white supremacist seems to have really taken off. It seems to have really attracted attention. So thank you. I know a lot of people seem to have been finding me from that video, so thank you. I also want to thank, I think it's Snaz97, who I think left a comment on that video about how he disagreed with me about what I said about George Floyd. So first of all, I want to say thank you, Snaz, because in reading his comment, I realized that I made a mistake. I made a mistake in mentioning Floyd at all because, as I said in the video itself, Floyd's death, in my opinion, while unjust, in my personal opinion, um, was not a result of race, in my opinion. And the point of the video was to highlight how Akila's ranting and false labeling of Sargon as a racist and a white supremacist spits on the graves of people like George Stinney and Emmett Till, who have died because of sincere um, anti-black racism and white supremacy and whatnot, and who did not receive justice for literal decades because of it. So, in that regard, I take the L. I was wrong to mention George Floyd in that context because of the fact that it was not related to the argument that I was trying to make or the topic of the video. And I just want to thank Snaz. I think it was Snaz. I might be getting it wrong. I apologize if I am. But I just want to thank that commenter for that. And I encourage people who have been watching me for a while will know this. Some of the newer ones may not. I'm all for respectful disagreement. And one of the reasons why is because of comments like Snaz's. It introduces me to a new point of view. May agree, may not, but it introduces me to a new point of view that perhaps I did not consider when making the video or was not aware of. And in the case of this particular comment, it made me look back and realize that I was wrong to bring up George Floyd in that particular context. So I need and I appreciate comments like that because comments like that keep me honest. They keep me honest and they keep me accountable, right? And I need that type of feedback. As much as I like the feedback where everybody's in agreement, I also love and appreciate the feedback that challenges me, that challenges something I've said and challenges my position in some way. So to Snaz, I think it was Snaz. Again, if I'm getting your YouTube name wrong, I apologize, but you know who you are. Thank you, sincerely. So, on to the video. Now, I will admit, I am probably a bit late. Hi, Archie. I will admit I'm probably a bit late on this. I actually didn't know about this until a few minutes ago. I happened to be scrolling through YouTube and I saw a video from It's a Gundam critiquing Joe Rogan for apparently some anti-video game statements he made. So I looked up the clip. It's a clip that's a little over 4 minutes, and yeah, it's anti-gamer statements. If I had to sum it up quickly, I would just say, okay, boomer, right? It's Joe Rogan being a 50-year-old man who doesn't understand video games, and more importantly, is dismissive of them. But I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to make an argument for video games. Now, I don't know if Joe will ever see this, but if he does, hi, Joe. I'm a gamer. Been gaming all my life. And I hope that if you come across this video, and here's the thing, I'm actually a fan of Joe Rogan's content. I don't always agree with him or the people he brings on, but I like the challenge, so maybe Joe should think about bringing a gamer on, or bringing in somebody from the gaming industry, right? So there's that. So there's my invitation to Joe Rogan in the incredibly unlikely attempt or instance that he finds this video. But who knows? If you guys want to share it, you can always share it. I don't mind at all. Promotion, yay! But here's the thing. So Joe made these anti-gamer comments, right? To sum it up, in my opinion at least, he seems to only see the value in video games if there's a monetary gain that can be made. Towards the end of the clip, he talks about esports players and talks about, oh, can you make money off of that? But you got to be really skilled and talented to make money off of that. But he's largely critical because it seems that he equates playing video games with laziness or with addictive behavior. In the beginning of the clip, he talks about how people might grow up in very, bad circumstances, right? And they don't have real world people to look to, right? For example, their parents. And so, because they're depressed and all this stuff, they look to drugs, or they look to video games to sort of, self-medicate, and it causes them to waste time and be unproductive. So here's my response to that. Can those things happen? Yes, that's true. It can happen. But does that mean video games are the culprit? No. If someone is doing anything to a detrimental degree, if you're spending too much time watching the Joe Rogan podcast, if you're spending too much time watching your sport or sport of choice, if you're spending too much time drinking, if you're spending too much time having sex, if you're spending too much time exercising, if you're spending too much time doing things to the detriment of your life, right, to where it's interfering with your life, then there's a problem, usually depression. I have very personal experience with this. I struggle with depression, and I live with family who is chronically depressed. So just imagine that, right? I struggle with it, and now I gotta live with someone who basically is a living embodiment of it. So yeah, right? There are days where I just want to sleep all day, right? Nobody would say sleep is a bad thing, right? We acknowledge that if somebody is sleeping too much to the point where they're struggling to get life done, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I've been in that spot. I was in that spot last year. Last year was one of the toughest years of my life, and that's including puberty. I went through a lot last year. I was briefly homeless. We were all briefly homeless because the house, where we, well, apartment, I should say, we lost everything. I'm just gonna put it that way. One day I'll eventually tell the full story, but just to keep it simple, we lost everything. It was sudden. It was deadly. I could have lost him, the cat. I could have lost my life. Could have lost my family member. We were honestly lucky that, for as bad as it wasn't worse. But during last year, for I would say pretty much from the time it happened up until maybe a few months ago, right? Probably actually around the time COVID started. Honestly, I was struggling. And this is not to say I'm still not struggling, but I'm saying like really, 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 really deep into it. I was struggling mightily with depression, and I was sleeping a lot. I was skipping work a lot, right? Nobody would say, oh, sleep was the problem, right? The problem was that I was incredibly stressed out. I was trying to hold everything together, and I was falling apart, if I'm just perfectly honest, right? And with all the help that people gave me, both in my personal life and at work, right? And I'm very thankful to them. Without those people, I wouldn't be here, right? But in the end, there's stuff that you have to do yourself, right? You have to get up and go to work. You have to earn money yourself. And I was just so tired, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I was just done. I could not find the energy. I was in a very dark place, and all I wanted to do was sleep. That's not the problem of sleep, right? Sleep didn't cause me to be in this deep depression where I could not get out of bed, right? I would literally wake up not knowing if I'd be able to drag myself to work and at least be late, right? Or if I'd be able to go at all, right? Sleep didn't cause that. I was incredibly stressed out, going through a hell of a lot, right? For everything that I'm saying, there's even more that I'm not saying, right? And I could not cope. I could not cope well. I could not. I was Atlas, right? I was Atlas. I had the world on my shoulders and it was crushing me. And so I slept. Nobody would say sleep is a bad thing. So, in the same way, I don't think it's fair to blame video games or equate them to drugs. If someone is abusing drugs, it's because they have internal problems. If somebody is abusing playing video games, it's because they have an internal problem. The game does not cause the problem, right? The drugs. Let's say like painkillers, right? You get painkillers legally, right? But they dull the pain and the person becomes addicted, right? Because the body needs more, right? And all this other stuff. But stuff like, video games or music or sex or even drinking, right? Most people, at least in my experience, who say are alcoholics did not go into it wanting to be alcoholics. It's not as if they picked up a beer and thought, this is the right life choice. I'm going to intentionally become an alcoholic. No. Most people, at least to my knowledge, who become alcoholics were just trying to cope. They were just trying to find something that makes the pain go away. It's not the fault of the alcohol, same way it's not the fault of the medicine, same way it's not the fault of the video game, or the podcast, or the movie, or the sport, or anything else. The person has an internal problem, oftentimes depression, at least in my experience, and they are trying to find an easy way to cope. I'm not saying that's right, but it is human. It is a human thing to rely on an easy fix on a crutch to deal with a serious problem, because oftentimes dealing with the serious problem is just too much for us at the time. It's too scary. It's the answer, but it's also the answer that we can't take because it's just too damn much, right? So there's that. So there's all that. There's me bearing my soul of sorts, right? So I disagree with him trying to blame video games or equate them to drugs and equate them with laziness. People who play video games, right, in my opinion, if you just keep it in a healthy place, aren't lazy. It's no different than people who unwind and relax by watching sports or participating in sports or watching MMA, right? Or watching pro wrestling, or again, watching his podcast or anything else. So there's that. Now, to be fair, Joe encourages and he talks about a physical lifestyle, right? He talks about how he was always interested in martial arts and being physical and active, and how, video games, in his opinion, don't encourage this. Joe, you could not be further from the truth. I was fit at one point, believe it or not, or at least semi-fit, right? Video games, in part, were what inspired me. Here's the thing. Any medium can be inspiring to you. Many people, for example, who get into video games are inspired because other people were in video games. Same way people who say want to become basketball players are inspired by the basketball players that they watched growing up. And it applies to music and anything else. People can take inspiration from anything. But getting back to fitness, because he has a point about fitness. But, right, video games can inspire fitness because there are many sports games, there are many fighting games. I was at one point in my life reasonably fit, and part of the reason was because I grew up playing video games, playing fighting games, seeing women like Chun-Li, seeing women like Sonya, seeing women like Cammy, right? Seeing real world examples such as any female wrestler ever, right? Or seeing female athletes, or just seeing athletes in general and going, hey, that looks fun, right? And video games were a part of that, right? The fact that I am now out of shape has absolutely nothing to do with video games. I don't play them as nearly as much as I did when I was younger because I don't have the circumstances anymore to play them as I did when I was a teenager, because I am a 35-year-old woman with a job and a sick family member to look after and a cat, and I have to do things that I didn't have to do at 15, like pay rent. Right? So I cannot game the way I did back then. But gaming is to not be blamed for whatever health issues I have brought upon myself due to my sedentary lifestyle. That's on me. But video games can inspire people to pursue a certain course in life, just like comic books have inspired people to go down a certain course in life. A good example, since he brings up fitness, is Jack's Blade, right? He's been inspired. He mainly talks about anime, right? But he's also mentioned video game characters. Heck, his name is a reference to two video game characters, right? Well, sorry, one video game character, one Marvel character. Jax comes from Jax, right? From the Mortal Kombat games, right? The big, strong black dude, right? And then you have the character Blade, right? The vampire from Marvel Comics. So here's a guy who takes his name, his very YouTube name, from a video game character, right? Who was the physical embodiment of strength. Jax's whole character up until recently was, I am a strong black American man, right? And a character from Marvel, right? Blade the Vampire. And Jax has been very open about the fact that it was anime mainly. There were other things, but they're anime mainly, in particular Dragon Ball Z, that eventually inspired him to get into shape. The things you love can inspire you to do great things, including change yourself for the better. The funny thing is that Jax actually, I know that he has at least one video game inspired workout. And that workout is for the First Lady of Fighting Games. This dude literally cosplayed as Chun frickin' Li and made a workout routine around it, and it is amazing. He looks good in that costume. I'm not gonna lie. It's like Jackie Chan cosplaying as Chun-Li in City Hunter, and then Jax. They both pull it off, right? But my point is that the things that you gravitate to can inspire you to great things, to improve yourself. And one of those things is video games. Same way it works for some people with comics. Some people have gone into the military because they were fans of Captain America. In fact, there was a story of a boy, I think his name is Bridger, right? Where he's such a fan of Captain America. And this is the movie version, so the poor kid doesn't even know the real Captain America. Fight me. The movie version of Cap ain't Cap. But anyway, right? He's so inspired by the Chris Evans portrayal of Captain America. At this young boy, when his sister was attacked by a dog, I think a pit bull or something, he stepped in. He rescued her. At the risk of his own body. He got hurt. He's got stitches, right? He was willing to die. I believe he was interviewed and he said that he felt that if it's going to be him or his sister, it should be him, right? He didn't learn that on his own. He didn't wake up one day and think, oh, this is how I view my life in comparison to my sister. No, he learned that. He learned that from Captain America. He, at 6 years old, took inspiration from Captain America. Another one, another channel that I follow is the Bioneer, right? He's another fitness guy. And he takes inspiration from a lot of comic book characters. And the reason I mention it is because many comic book characters are now in video games, so it is related. But he's done videos on how you can work out like Batman, how you can do gymnastics work like Nightwing. I think there's a video where he talks about how to run faster, and it's inspired by Flash, right? So these mediums of, pop culture, geek culture, right? They can inspire people to do great things and to improve themselves, and then they inspire others. Here's the thing. Joe, in my opinion, seems to think that video games are only valuable if they can make you money, right? He does speak with a little bit of, I'm not even going to say respect, but a little less criticism of, say, esports players, because there's a possibility of making money off of it. But here's the thing. In my opinion, if you look at something, especially something you don't personally engage with or understand, and you come to the conclusion of, oh, it's only useful if you can make money, well, that, in my opinion, is just incredibly short-sighted and just very superficial, in my opinion. There is different types of payoffs than just money. I don't make money making these videos, and I'm fine with that. That's intentional. That's not the payoff that I get. I don't make money watching the Joe Rogan podcast. That's not the payoff I'm looking for. I don't make money playing video games, or the very few that I actually get a chance to play these days, which are usually games from my childhood, right? But again, it's not the payoff I'm looking for, and that's fine. I equate it to, how do I put it? I'll just tell a story. When I was growing up, my mother was a huge football fan. I fell out of love, with football fairly early. Pretty much when Steve Young and Jerry Rice retired and the 49ers were no longer a dynasty, I was done. I noped out. So I lost my interest in football fairly quickly, right? But something I learned watching my mother watch football, especially when her teams won, right? When they didn't win, I had to deal with a very depressed person, so I was always mad about that because it wasn't the stressor I needed. But what I learned when she was happy watching it was the fact that it isn't about me. It isn't about whether or not I find value in her spending a Monday night or a Saturday or a Sunday or spending Thanksgiving break watching football. It isn't about what I think of it. It isn't about what I get out of it, because I don't get anything out of it. It is about what she gets out of it. It brings, or at least for the time she was watching it, I don't think she's watched in a few years, but back when she was watching it, it brought her joy. Her eyes would light up. She would speak with a joy in her voice that I didn't usually hear out of her, and especially as she got older and life got harder. Those were one of the few sincere joys in life that she had. Or, for example, singing. For example, she likes country music. I don't. But, again, I've learned over time to not, I guess, be overly critical of country music, or the fact that she likes country music, because I don't. As a musical medium, it's lost on me. I'm more of a classic rock girl. But it makes her happy. She gets a kick out of it. It doesn't matter. It isn't about me. It doesn't matter what I think, right? If it makes her feel better, if it takes a little stress off of her back to sing a country song at the top of her lungs, or to um, watch a football game, then I'll just make myself scarce and do something else. If it's not something I can personally tolerate, like, we've all had that experience of, like, someone singing, and it's like, could you please shut up, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this, right? I don't want to hear this or see this, so you go somewhere else, right? I'm not going to interfere, I guess you can say, in something that brings her joy just because the effect is lost on me. Especially when I have things in my life that bring me joy. I like video games. I like rock music. I like making these videos. They give me a payoff. They help me relieve stress. They make me happy. They remind me of simpler times. They're a distraction, right? My life is hard and it's getting harder. I need these type of things, and I'm not going to deprive it of someone else just because it is different from what calms me, right? Or makes me happy. Both are valid. Her love of football is valid, and it's just as valid as my love of basketball. It's just different. And that's what I wish people like Joe Rogan or Bill Maher or Jimmy Kimmel, or back when he was alive, Roger Ebert, would understand. Video games are different. You don't have to like them. You don't have to like them at all. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of movies. But unlike Roger Ebert, I'm not going to sit here and spend a half hour of my time or write a long article on a website demeaning movies. I'll criticize and complain about the unhealthy negative practices in the movie industry if it's a topic that I find interesting, right? I'll do that because, again, it's critiquing something bad within that industry. But there's a difference between pointing out, say, a toxic practice, like, for example, forced diversity, which ruins the quality of movies, right? There's a difference between that and saying, oh, movies as a medium suck. Movies as a medium suck. They're pointless. They're meaningless. They can never be high art. And that's that, because I said so, right? I wouldn't say such a thing other than to mock people who would. But that is exactly what Roger Ebert did to gaming. He didn't criticize a practice in gaming that he didn't agree with. He criticized gaming as a medium and said it could never be high art. Which I find funny because, first of all, when he wrote that article, it was like 10 or so years ago. I was in college, so it was a while ago. But by that point, when he wrote that article, video games such as Super Metroid, Metal Gear Solid, the original Final Fantasy VII had come out. And those games, at least among gamers, are widely considered to be works of art, right? Just because something is a work of art in a medium you don't understand doesn't mean it's not a work of art, right? For example, I don't understand paintings. I've seen paintings. They do nothing for me. It doesn't change the fact that the Mona Lisa is a work of art. That I don't get it does not negate its value to those that do. And I think we need to be more respectful of what is different and maybe doesn't have value to us because, and I know this is going to sound a bit ironic, it's very easy to be a critic. And I say this as a critic, right? It's easy to be a critic and to say, this is bad. I don't get it. I don't like it. So it is bad. It's easy to do that. It is much more difficult to try to put yourself in the other person's shoes or to understand the value it might have to someone else, even if it doesn't have that value to you. I'll use another example. Quentin Tarantino's films. Kill Bill, for example. I'm not a fan of Quentin Tarantino. Again, I don't watch movies in general, but I've seen bits of Kill Bill too violent for my taste. That doesn't mean it's a bad film. It's just simply a film that is not for me, right? That doesn't mean that he's a bad director. It just means that he made something that is distasteful to me. That does not invalidate its artistic value. It's simply, we're just not compatible. And that's okay. It is perfectly fine for something to not be to your taste. What is not fine, in my opinion, is to condemn something without reason just because you don't like it or you don't understand it. For example, I don't like horror games. I don't like Resident Evil. I played it for like 5 minutes when I was a kid. I got killed by a zombie, screamed, and I was done. I'm not going to condemn the Resident Evil games because they're something I don't like. That for me is not enough of a reason to condemn them. So there's all that. Now, what I find interesting is that Joe talks about how he was kind of like the odd kid when he was growing up, and he was interested in things like art. And I'm like, dude, video games include a lot of art. There's a lot of writing, especially in modern day games, because a narrative is so important. But there's writing, so there's, I guess, say literative. Would that be right? Literature, art. I don't quite know what the term would be, but you need good writing to make a game work in today's world. You needed it even back when I was growing up. Again, games like Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, right, have these very gripping narratives. Like, one of the most, and I think I've said this before in video, but like, one of the most gripping moments for me personally when I first played Final Fantasy VII, and still even to this day, like, everybody cries when like Aerith dies. I cry when Red finds out that his father was not the coward he had always believed him to be. He finds out that his father, who's kind of like a stone statue now, he got petrified. But his father, for all effects and purposes, is dead, right? His father is dead. He finds out that his father died defending his village. And he makes this impassioned speech to his frozen in stone, petrified father, who's, like, he's got, like, all these different, like, long arrows sticking out of him and everything. And he makes this impassioned speech about how, he's going to follow in his father's footsteps, and he's going to defend their home and to help the other characters save the world and all this stuff. And then there's a moment where, see, I'm choking up just talking about it, right? There's a moment when the statue of his father, Seto, begins crying. It's tears from a stone. And there's this close-up on the tear, right, falling and falling in the sky. And just just the whole thing, right? And it's not even voice acted. In the original one, they weren't doing voice acting then. So you have to read all this text, which, interestingly enough, side note, actually helped my brother with his reading issues and his dyslexia when we were growing up. So actually playing wordy RPGs helped him with his schooling. So take that. But anyway, right? So you have to read through all of this text. You have to read through all of this and watch this scene. See the graphics. See this close-up of this crystallized tear falling down, and hear this very slow, mournful remix of the Cosmo Canyon theme. And it's like, you can hear my voice and see how choked up I am. It's one of those things where you have to see it to believe it. It is such a moving scene in a game full of moving scenes and moments, because it is art. It is no less artistic than a movie or a song or anything else. It's just in a different medium. You need music for that scene to work. You need dialogue for that scene to work. You need a visual, right? You need graphics. You need colors. You need art. It is gripping. For its time, it was groundbreaking, and it is still emotionally impactful. That is art. And in my opinion, no one has the right to demean it, right? Just because it's in a medium they don't understand. That's how I feel about it. And I would say that I said it to Roger Ebert uh, when I responded to that article of his all those years ago. I would say it to Joe. I'm saying it to Joe and everybody else right now. Right? It is no less art. It is no less emotionally impactful or artistic just because it's a video game. You try composing a soundtrack, right? That's hard enough. You try composing a soundtrack. Now, put in special effects, put in the intense programming, right, to make the characters move, to make sure all the buttons work, to make sure the option screens are working properly, right? Then you have all the people who do the art and the colors and the graphics. That takes a lot of programming. Then, of course, right, you need this whole huge production just to make the game. Now, bring in another team to do all the translations because Final Fantasy VII is a Japanese game. Now you need to take this huge monster of a game that's like 3 CDs long, which was huge for the 1990s, and now translate it into English and into Korean and into other languages and dialects so you can sell it across the world. Don't tell me video games are a waste of time just because you don't see the value in them. Maybe talk to somebody who's actually in it or actually loves it before you demean something and say it has no value just because you don't see the value in it outside of money. And another thing that he talks about, I know I'm going on forever about this, but another thing he mentions is that, well, in martial arts, and I'm summarizing here, he mentions that, in martial arts, right, you can go and practice martial arts, and in a few years, you can be a purple belt and be reasonably skilled. Well, and he talks about how you can't do that in gaming. Mr. Rogan, you are patently wrong. I can tell you this because I grew up playing video games. You improve in skill. You improve in things like quick reflexes, right? Fast twitch muscles, hand-eye coordination, puzzle solving, developing the ability to deal with losing and defeat and coming back for more, especially with the games I grew up with, because video games back in the day were challenge simulators. There's a reason why they had names back in the arcades like quarter munchers, right? You learn to recognize patterns, right? Just because it's mainly mainly cerebral, right? Excluding games like Just Dance or DDR, but still challenge your hand-eye coordination, your ability to follow what's on the screen and all this other stuff. But bearing games like that, which actually do make you move around and make you physical, right? Video games test you in a multitude of ways. They force you to problem solve. They force you to lose time and time and time again until you figure out the pattern and you get it right. Then, after all that, the game has the nerve to challenge you and go, you want to play on normal now? You want to take a chance and play on normal? Or if you're playing on normal, you think that you're ready for hard now? Or if you're playing on hard, you think you're ready for extreme? Right? If you want to talk about difficult, play Street Fighter 2 on level 8. I literally spent years of my childhood working up to that moment. I spent an hour and a half. The first time I beat Street Fighter 2 on level 8, I was playing as Guile, who I suck at. Right? And it took me an hour and a half to finally beat Bison. It was to the point where my brother, who back then was much better at these games than I was, offered several times to step in and do it for me because he was better and he had already beaten the game with Guile and a number of characters. And I said no. I said no. This is my victory. I'm going to do this. I'm going to continue at this until I finally get it. And after an hour and a half, I finally did. I was around, what, 7, 8 years old. I was so damned happy and relieved, I cried. And I've had that experience several times since. Playing Tekken 2, trying to get past Kazuya, playing Metal Gear Solid, especially on hard, or oh god, Metal Gear Solid 2, when you have to hold up all the soldiers and get them to give you their dog tags. I am not good at stealth, right? But those games forced me to improve in my skills, to go the next level up, and to challenge myself, to challenge my hand speed, to challenge my hand-eye coordination, to challenge my brain mentally, right? How can I sneak around? How can I beat this boss? How can I do this? How can I do that? And as I've gotten older, and I've made videos about this, as I've gotten older, I've learned to take life lessons from video games, right? I'm only going to share one story because this video is very long. It's about 10 times longer than the video clip. But as you know, I'm a very passionate person. But one of the biggest life lessons I learned from a video game was about adversity and coming back. How would I put it? I guess I would say overcoming a uneven and unfair situation, right? So let me explain, especially if you're not familiar with the game I'm going to talk about. It's the Sniper Wolf fight, the first Sniper Wolf fight in Metal Gear Solid, right? So for those who are not familiar, Metal Gear Solid is a stealth game. You have to sneak around, take out the enemy stealthily without getting caught. It's a pretty common thing now. Back in the 1990s, it was big news, right? So you eventually come across this boss battle with a sniper, with a female sniper known as Sniper Wolf. Pretty obvious in the name, right? But the thing about this boss fight is that, in my opinion, it's probably the most demoralizing moment, storyline-wise, in the game, because Snake is caught unawares, right? He doesn't realize that he's walked into a trap. He has a female, I guess you could say, ally at the time in Meryl. She gets shot. She gets injured. Snake can't save her. And the game quite literally forces you to go back to the start, to literally go back to the very first level of the game to go get the sniper rifle. So you're playing at this, sort of like power fantasy, right? He's a spy. He can do martial arts. He has all these guns, all these gadgets. He can't be beat. And then the game literally sends you running back to the start. Hey, hi RJ. Good boy. The game sends you back running to the start, right, with your tail between your legs. To this day, at least in my gaming experience, I can't think of a more demoralizing moment, right? To be forced to literally go back to the starting level, go back to level 1. But you have to. You have to because level 1, the first level, is where you find the sniper rifle. And the sniper rifle in this particular battle is the only weapon you have, the only weapon you can use to defeat Sniper Wolf, right? So you go back to the start of the game, you get the sniper rifle, you go through all the other challenges to get back to this area where basically you have met your greatest defeat, in my opinion. And now you have to actually fight her. You have to fight somebody who has every advantage, right? The level design, because it's a sniper alley, is to her advantage. She can hide, you can't. RJ, stop. She can hide, you can't. She has 3 different stances, I guess you could say, that she can snipe from. She can stand, she can kneel, she can lie prone. Snake can only lie prone. That's the only way he can snipe. She has unlimited bullets. He doesn't. Right? He has very limited rations, limited bullets, limited everything. Right? Her health bar is longer than Snake's. Right? And on top of all of this, when you're doing the sniping, right? Snake's handshake, right? So on the screen, it gives you like a sniper view, right? The whole like the cross and all that. So it's constantly shaking. Now you can take a pill in the game, diazepam, right, which is a real world muscle relaxer, but its effect is short lived, and like everything else, right? It's in short supply. So for most of that sniper battle, at least in my experience, most of the time you're dealing with Snake shaking because he's not a good sniper, because his hands shake. Whereas Sniper Wolf has so much diazepam in her system that her hands don't move at all. Everything from the level design to your own control scheme, because again, Snake is shaking, is against you. Your opponent has every advantage. The game has completely disadvantaged you in this battle. And then it has the nerve to say, you need to win. Because you can't move any further in the game until you beat Sniper Wolf. So you have to come up into this completely disadvantaged situation. The boss character has every advantage available, but the game says, if you want to advance, if you want to move to the next scene, the next level, the rest of the game, you need to win this fight, Chief. And you can. I know you can because I did it, and I suck at Metal Gear. I'm being honest. I'm not good at sneaking around in real life or in fantasy. But as I get older, I remind myself of that more and more and more. Because that's not just a video game level design boss battle thing. It's a life lesson. You are going to be disadvantaged in life. You're going to come into situations that are completely unfair, that are completely against you. Your only option is to win. You have to go into that situation even though everything's against you, and you have to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. That's not just a video game thing. That's a life thing. But I learned it, and I remember it because of a video game. So, in this overly long video, to respond to Joe Rogan, with all due respect to Joe, video games are not a waste of time. Video games can be works of art. Video games can teach you life lessons. Video games can inspire people to do better and to be better. The video game industry has got a lot of problems. Video game studios and devs are constantly at war with their fans. But that does not mean video games as a medium are useless or without value, or that their only value is monetary. It's a very, as I said earlier, RJ. As I said earlier, it's a very, RJ. It's a very, aren't you? See, I'm putting you on camera. Look at this. He bit me. Shame him. Anyway, as I was saying, to think that video games only have value, or to, RJ, stop. Or to think that their only value begins and ends with money is short-sighted and incredibly superficial. And that is not the way to treat an artistic medium, a creative medium that you don't understand, Mr. Rogan. Video games are just as valid as the martial arts you practice, as the UFC that you commentate for, as the comedy that you do. It's just as valid. It has just as much importance to people. It's simply different. Being different is not bad. And it's perfectly fine if it is something different that you don't like or that you don't understand. But please, before you say something derogatory and demeaning again about video games, remember that people once thought rock music was degrading. People once thought movies were useless. People once thought radio plays and dramas or theater, right? Theater was not always viewed as this high art type of thing. Shakespeare was not liked and respected in his day. There are people, or within time, within history, throughout history, I should say, there are people who said that comic books were without artistic merit or value, or that comedy was without artistic merit and value. Those are all ignorant judgments that come from ignorant people who are scared of something that they don't know and don't understand. Right? Ignorance breeds hate. Hate breeds fear. Fear leads to the dark side. So please, don't join the dark side just because there are people who enjoy something that you don't. I don't particularly enjoy UFC, but I'm not going to demean it just because I don't personally enjoy it. I'm not going to say that it is a lesser form of sport or of combat sport just because it is different than, say, boxing or my combat sport of choice, pro wrestling, which is an entirely different carton of eggs. They are all valid. They all have value and merit. They are simply different. Differences should not be demeaned. Differences should be respected, acknowledged, and celebrated. You can love your UFC and your art and your comedy, and I hope you do. But just as much as I hope that you love those things, I hope that you respect my love and other people's love for video games, because it's just as valid. Video games mean as much to me as the UFC means to you. In fact, I went to college because of video games, because there was a point in my life where I wanted to get into video games, so I figured I'll learn to build websites and that'll be my way in. Now, that didn't happen. I didn't end up making video games, but I did end up going to college. Video games convinced me to go to college. That's worth something, in my opinion. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. I know this is a doozy, but I couldn't let this stand. So anyway, again, have a good night, have a good day wherever you are, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.